Hey everybody, I'm Patrick.
I'm Chris.
And we're back with another beautiful episode of Every Horror Movie on Netflix. We're here today with our returning guest, Allyson with a Y.
Hello.
And we're here today with new guest, Katie.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for being here.
Our long-term friend Steven is taking the week off.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd double up on the guests for the first time ever.
Yes. It's
Amazing.
an exciting day. We miss Steven, but we're glad to have Katie here. Katie, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brings you here? Why do you even want to be here today with us schmucks?
Well, I've known Patrick and Allyson for both of them for quite a while, and I really love horror movies. Mm-hmm. It's a thing that not a lot of people know about me.
And you watch a lot. You watch a lot of Netflix horror, I know too.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
What's your favorite thing you've seen on Netflix? Horror-wise, that is.
Okay, I watched Apostle recently and really liked that. There were some unexpected twists in that one that I didn't see coming. I thought the ending was really good. Mm-hmm. The acting, the cast was fantastic. I mean, it has Michael Sheen in it, who I love. Michael Sheen so much. And, what's his face? Dan Stevens. Yes, Dan Stevens. Yes. It was very fun to watch.
I haven't seen it. I think we got some listener mail that recommended that to us.
Yeah,
but,
we have.
You know, just haven't got there yet. There's too much to watch.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because it didn't know what to expect going in. I didn't find it to be super predictable. So,
what's your like go-to sort of genre? What are you usually looking to get out of horror? Like, what do you love about horror? What are you looking for when you watch a horror movie?
I mean, I love a good paranormal scare. Mm-hmm. Like, I just remember watching The Conjuring alone in my apartment in the dark and being freaked out. It just I was physically uncomfortable watching The Conjuring in my apartment. But then sometimes I like a good gory scare too. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, cool. And you are also a Every Horror Movie Netflix listener, if not fan. You've definitely listened to a few eps, right?
I have. Yeah. I have, and I've enjoyed them.
Thank you.
So thanks for having me on the show.
We need those listens.
Good. Yep. Prerequisite for being a guest is saying nice things about our show.
Yeah. I love you guys so much. Oh my gosh.
We love you too. We're so glad you're here.
And then after you become a guest, you can start trolling after that point.
So, Patrick, you picked the episode this week. Tell us about it.
I was just about to, in fact. I picked Holidays, which I picked totally randomly before our last episode because I knew I had to pick something, and I was just like going through the Netflix list. I didn't want to pick something obvious or like a classic or anything. Yeah, just didn't want to go for anything too obvious. And I saw Holidays, and I love anthology movies. I love movies that are a series of vignettes, and I'm sort of fascinated with things that have to do with the holidays, so I went with this. And boy, it is both of those things. Like, it's definitely a series of vignettes about the holidays.
Yes, it is.
So to set up the basic premise, it's 8 vignettes, right?
Yeah, it was 8.
And each one deals with a different holiday. It's usually pretty clear which holiday you're dealing with at the beginning of the vignette. And we go in chronological order, starting with Valentine's Day and going down through New Year's Eve.
I thought that was
Day.
an interesting choice to organize it that way.
Yeah.
It makes sense because it's chronological and you're going through the year, but I don't know, I guess usually I've seen anthologies that kind of are strategic with placing their material and starting on a high note and ending on a high note, and which isn't to say that this movie doesn't do that. I just thought it was interesting that they just had a very
That's a good point, because I think this movie, at least in my opinion, led with some stronger material, and I think it could have done with some reorganization to put some of the stronger stuff later.
Yeah.
Instead of just going strictly chronological.
And also, there were 2 that were pretty close to one another that had a very similar theme in them. And I won't say what that is right now, but I think those 2 could have been spaced out more. But restricting it to chronological put those right together, right up at the front. And I was like, is this gonna be all of them?
It's interesting. There's a different director, different writer for every segment. You kind of learn the holiday and the title of the segment as a little punchline at the end of each one. And other than that, there's really no organizing structure. We're going to try and kind of do this a little differently. We decided today we're going to summarize real quickly everything up front and then review and then go to the spoiler room. Since it's 8 different stories and 8 different sets of spoilers, almost everything we could talk about will be a spoiler. So I'm thinking maybe we could just take turns. Anybody want to just give a quick summary of what we're talking about on the Valentine's Day one?
All right, I got this one.
Okay, Allison with the Y, hit us.
All right, so the basic premise of the Valentine's one is what I'm assuming was a middle school girl swimmer is bullied and has a crush on her swim coach.
Mm-hmm.
And chaos ensues.
I think that's actually an appropriately vague and brief summary because these are all 15 minutes each, so there's not a whole lot we can say without getting into spoilers.
This is a little difficult for me to get my head around because a lot of these, the premise kind of is the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't deep stories. That's kind of something that bothered me about the movie.
No, but how deep a story can you tell in 15 minutes?
That's true. Yeah. But you get the gist, you get the premise, and it's oh, that's it. And sometimes there's a spooky little punchline that's gotcha.
Yeah.
And then that's your short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess we can go on and attempt to kind of give the broad strokes of what's going on in each of these.
So because it pertains to my name, I'll say the St. Patrick's Day one, which was one of my favorites, minus a couple of moments that we'll talk about in the spoiler room, deals with a grade school teacher who has a very creepy kid in her class who seems to be inspired in certain supernatural ways by the classic myth of St. Patrick driving the snakes out of Ireland, and chaos ensues. Anybody want to take a stab at the Easter one?
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
So this one is...
I know this one hit you hard, Katie.
It did.
We watched this together.
Yeah. This one is, there's a little girl lying in bed. Her mom's tucking her in, and it's the night before Easter, and her mom's telling her about, you gotta go to sleep, and the Easter bunny's gonna come overnight and bring, candy eggs and chicks and things, but you gotta make sure you stay in bed and stay asleep because no one's supposed to see the Easter bunny.
Mm-hmm. And chaos ensues. So, Chris, I think it's now officially your turn to describe Mother's Day.
Mother's Day was next. Yeah. Mother's Day was one of the more interesting ones for me. It's about a woman who apparently conceives every time she has sex. And her doctor, of all people, encourages her to go out in the desert where her sister runs a cult-ish fertility retreat. And what intentions do they have? Ooh.
And this one was interesting to me because it was the only one where I had multiple minutes of doubt about what holiday it actually represented. It takes a while for them to actually reference Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And this is weird. I thought that maybe it was an off, a really off reference to Native American culture and something to do with 4th of July, because we have this these vaguely tribal dances, and I'm is this some really clueless filmmaker's attempt to make is there a 4th of July punchline coming here? I don't know. This was the only one where I was where are we going with this?
This is by far the most subtle of any of the segments,
with the holiday theme,
but with the holiday theme and overall, and just what it was trying to do thematically or show. This is the only. Let me put it this way: this is the only film of the 6 or 8 that I thought had any subtext whatsoever.
I have a very different opinion on that one, but we'll discuss that later.
Yeah, we will get deeper into that.
All right. Next, we had Father's Day.
Yeah. Anybody want to volunteer on that one? Katie, I think you should summarize. You like this one.
I really like this one. This woman gets a box in the mail that contains a cassette recorder with headphones and a cassette tape that was recorded by her father, mm-hmm. with a surprising message and quest from him.
And I think it's a good note for EHMON fanatics.
Oh, nice.
Jocelyn Donahue, our friend from, what was she in that we saw just recently, Chris? Dead Awake, right?
Dead Awake.
And also from House of the Devil, an actress who we like quite a bit is in that segment.
Yep.
And then next up we have...
Kevin Smith's Halloween.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Halloween,
in which we have
kills again.
We have a
Halloween cams.
We have a surrogate for Kevin Smith,
Yeah.
who is a depraved operator of a house of webcam girls, and he doesn't treat them very well.
Let's just say this is not the best horror film we've seen about cam girls.
That's true. Or the best horror film we've seen about Halloween.
Or the best horror film we've seen by any metric.
Or the best horror film I've seen by Kevin Smith.
Wait, what horror film have you seen by Kevin Smith that was
Red
better
State.
than this? Oh, I haven't seen that.
Red State.
Is that good?
It's all right.
Doesn't John Goodman play like a right-wing fanatic of some sort
I
in that?
think he plays the cop, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
But there's a really good performance by somebody who's been in something since that I can't place his name, or I forget the details, but he plays like Jim Jones. And he does it in a very unsettling way. It's not literally Jim, it's a character that's heavily inspired by Jim Jones and talks like Jim Jones.
And you would call it a horror film?
I would.
Interesting.
Yep.
Tusk.
For at least the first half of it is a horror film.
Tusk fucking sucks. If we ever do Tusk on this podcast, fuck Tusk.
It's coming.
Allison, do you want to do Christmas or New Year's? Take your pick. I'll do the other one.
I'll do New Year's.
Okay. Christmas is about a father who is trying to get a popular Christmas toy for his kid, misses out on the last one, and makes a fateful and dark decision to get one of these toys for his kids, and chaos ensues.
Chaos ensues.
Allison, New Year's.
Okay. I don't really know how to describe it without like
I can.
Two people go on a date on New Year's Eve. They were set up by an online dating site, and chaos ensues.
I think that's good. I think that's good. Okay, so then, since we're obviously dancing around spoilers here, does anyone have sort of general thoughts on the movie, how well it worked, the general format?
Yeah, so I'm always intrigued by anthology movies. I always want to love anthology movies. I rarely ever actually do love anthology movies. I think part of that is because usually the quality of the movies is so inconsistent, and usually there's long parts of anthology movies where you're just waiting for the next segment to start. This movie I didn't think had that problem. I thought all the movies had an eerily similar quality to them.
Mm-hmm.
You may disagree, but they all seem to be kind of on the same level of technical quality and the quality of the story.
they felt like they existed in the same universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I looked up online to see if all the movies actually had their own crews, like different cinematographers for each segment. And that surprised me too, because I thought like the cinematography was very consistent. I might though be comparing it to like ABCs of Death, which we watched, which is just kind of a shit show where it's like the clash of styles is part of the thing.
I thought there were definitely some really distinct creative choices. I mean, especially if you look at like the St. Patrick's Day segment, which feels really unique. It feels like the work of a very specific directorial vision.
No, to me, it felt watching St. Patty's Day. It felt very Edgar Wright to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it has a lot of those
cuts.
quick cut, kind of things. Or Guy Ritchie-ish.
Yeah.
Kind of has that vibe, yeah.
I liked how, at least in the beginning, I really appreciated that the Valentine's episode had a very distinct white and red and pink color palette to it. And then the St. Patrick's Day episode was all tinted green like they were in the Matrix. And then that kind of dropped off. And that kind of, I was like, oh, I never realized that there's a lot of holidays that don't have colors. But, like you get to Mother's Day and Father's Day and it's just...
Well, Mother's Day was very earth-toned, very warm-toned, and Father's Day was very cool-toned.
Very blue,
Had a lot of
yeah.
blues.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that as well. I noticed how prominent the red and white is in the Valentine's Day episode, and then the greenish tint of the St. Patrick's. And I'm glad that they didn't really stick to that it wasn't so on the nose.
Oh, I wish it had been on the nose.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it worked well in the segments that did use on the nose color choices, but like if the Halloween one had been all orange and black, I don't know if I would have still been feeling it by that point in the proceedings.
I thought a lot of the segments in this movie were kind of shallow. Like, you kind of get the premise, and it's kind of a punchline, and then that's it. There wasn't a lot of depth to any of them, except for the Mother's Day one, like I mentioned. And so that was kind of, I don't know, it seemed kind of like a novelty movie, I guess.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a set of 8 horror shorts that are all holiday themed, I think it's hard for it not to be novelty, right?
Yeah, I think it was, I don't know, at least the whole thing kind of came off to me as it intended to be like a fun watch and nothing that you ponder on for too long afterwards.
Yeah. I will also say, here's another general note before we go to the spoiler room. Loved the opening. Loved that John Carpenter-ass music in the opening credits. Loved the almost Insidious-esque red and green Holidays opening title.
Oh, yeah.
That was dank. Loved it.
I mean, I thought the different holidays, they had very different tones to them, but like each one was very, very effective at communicating its tone and establishing that like pretty quickly through, music and the cinematography and stuff. Because they had very different vibes. Like the Valentine's Day, it was kind of like a little bit quirky and almost fun, and then Father's Day was kind of bleak, you know. And I think each one established its tone.
Do you
very
think
well.
that those tones reinforced the concept of the various holidays, or was it just a matter of the different filmmakers having a different style?
I think to me it was more reflective of the filmmakers than the holidays themselves.
I can't say that I feel like any of them captured like the spirit of the holiday that they were like the stories were about, you know.
I mean, perhaps the Christmas one.
Well,
or like what Christmas has become. More commentary on our society and what Christmas has become.
We'll have to get into it more in the spoiler room, but I think I could make an argument that Christmas kind of aimed to describe something about Christmas, at least for part of that story. Valentine's Day, I think, kind of captured what Valentine's means to some people, especially people who are in like high school or middle school, like the girls in that short.
Chris, you were really looking for themes in this movie.
Yeah,
I feel like you were maybe looking for a little more than it had to offer.
Well, I'm always looking for themes in the movie especially when I'm supposed to be reviewing a movie. Just to say, you know, why is this happening? Why is this violence happening in front of my eyes? What is this? You know,
entertainment.
Yeah.
The more shallow a story is, too, I think maybe the harder I look for themes. Because I'm like, to keep it interesting, I'm trying to find out something about how the filmmakers see the world. And that's where... Otherwise, it's just not interesting.
I'm really excited to hear your take on the themes in Kevin Smith's segment.
That one was a disappointment.
Spoiler alert.
And you know what? New Year's Eve I kind of like too.
I loved New Year's Eve.
My birthday is New Year's Eve. I have a sentimental attachment to New Year's Eve. And I thought New Year's Eve kind of in a weird way captured the holiday.
Have you ever been on an OkCupid date on New Year's Eve?
No, but I'm inspired to be this year.
After seeing that, oh gosh.
All right, I feel like we keep dancing around the spoiler room, so I think we should probably just go there.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe one of our reviews will give us something more to talk about before we actually go down the steps. But
yeah,
no, I think we gotta review. Well, Patrick, you picked the damn movie. Was it a good decision? Would you view it, cue it, or screw it?
You know, it's hard because there's some fun stuff in this movie. There are segments that I really liked. They're kind of stacked more towards the beginning of the movie, and there are ones that were kind of mediocre to me. You're going to hear a lot of opinions about all these segments coming up on this episode, so I'm going to say cue it and let all the other opinions you hear make your decision for you if you're sitting on the fence. Who wants to go next? Katie, what did you think?
I would give it a solid cue it. I think that, like you said, there's some really fun stuff in here. There's some that I didn't care for as much, but the ones that I think were strong were interesting enough to watch it, but not like, it's not a must-see by any measure.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah. Chris.
I will give it a cue it. I was really on the fence about that. I knew I wasn't going to give it a screw it. There's enough in this movie that everyone's going to find something to like. It just lacks so much depth that there's really no reason you have to see this movie. I think it makes for a good movie if you're just bored on the couch with a buddy and you want to be stimulated by something. I think people who are really into anthology films might appreciate it more than I did. You know, it was fine. We'll talk about some more, but I'll give it a cue. I did consider giving it a view it. There's just not enough there for me.
Same.
Allyson.
I am also on the cue it train. like everyone said, there's a lot of fun stuff in there. There's, definitely ones that I enjoyed more than others. I don't think it's like, oh my God, you have to see this. But I agree with what Chris said. If you're like hanging out with some friends, it was fun to watch it with Katie and Patrick, and which probably heightened the experience a little bit more than if I was sitting alone. I might have, oh, this isn't a great thing to say. I might have probably turned it off halfway through if I was by myself, to be honest. But cue it.
Let me ask a question that may be more interesting and more revealing. And you don't have to specify the segment, but are there any segments on here that you would definitely give a view it to?
Yes.
Okay.
That was 2 emphatic yeses.
I don't know. There were segments I liked. I'm not sure there's any segments that I would like, if they were on YouTube, send to somebody and say, you should watch this.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, absolutely.
I didn't feel like any of them were particularly view it material.
Yeah.
Because most of them left me with lots of questions.
Even the good ones. I was like, this is good, but so what?
I have one in particular, which we can talk about in the spoiler room, that I would absolutely call it a view it.
I have 2, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, so, this is unusual. 4 Qits. I don't even remember the last time we had 4 Qits.
Maybe never, but also an apparent diversity of opinion.
Right. That's what I was going to say. There's sort of there's a certain degree of unanimity among us right now, but I think there's going to be some differing opinions down in the spoiler room. So we should probably get on down there, and if you want to go watch the movie for yourself, go do that. If not, follow us down to the spoiler room where we're going to spoil fucking everything.
We're going to spoil 8 fucking movies.
Yeah. What more can you ask for?
Yeah. See you then.
See you there. Okay, everybody, welcome back. We're down here in the spoiler room, and we're about to spoil all 8 of these fucking segments. But
vignettes, thank you very much.
Vignettes, thank you. Yes, much classier term. But before we do that, I want to remind you all that we now have t-shirts. We have EHMON t-shirts that you can buy. A shocking number of you have bought them already, which thank you for doing that. And if you haven't already gotten one, they're pretty stylish. They look pretty cool. If you go on our social media, you can see sweet pictures of me and Allyson wearing these shirts.
It looks great. You're wearing it right now.
It does. Yeah, I am wearing it right now. Allyson took hers off because it was smelly. Not because of Allyson.
No,
it's
please wash your shirt before you wear it.
Yeah.
Just do that.
It came smelling a little odd, but yours, listener, if you order one, yours probably won't come smelling.
It probably won't smell like formaldehyde when you get it.
Anyways, if you want
to buy one of our poison t-shirts,
if you want one of our sweet shirts, go to our website, everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com. Everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com. Click the merch link, order one of those t-shirts, and send us a picture of it. Send us a picture of yourself wearing the shirt. You can, DM us, you can tag us, and we might share it on our social media if we like it. If you're rocking it, you gotta rock it. Anyways, let's get back to these movies.
Yeah, I was just looking to fact check to make sure that there was actually 8 segments, and I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, and the first sentence says, Holidays is a 2016 American horror anthology film of subversive short horror films.
Oh.
Ooh.
It's a bold word choice.
Subversive.
I don't know if I would call them subversive.
I mean, I don't know. But
let's start from the top.
Let's start at the very beginning.
Let's get
into a
very
good place to start.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty of Valentine's Day.
Young love.
I thoroughly enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one kind of exemplifies my problem with every short exemplifies my problem with this movie. I was really drawn in. I was like, this is great. And I was like, is that really just that's really what we're just ending up with? This? Yeah. The basic storyline is there's a girl on the diving team. Is it high school or middle school?
I thought it was high school.
They're
maybe.
Young. Kids are looking younger and younger these days.
Oy.
It's a high school diving team There's a girl who's just brutally bullied by every other member of the team.
She's called Maxie Pad all the time because her name's Maxine.
Yeah, she has a crush on her swim coach who can't do anything about the other bullies because they're putting on a fundraiser for him to get a new heart because he needs a new heart. He's sick.
But he is completely useless as a swim coach. Like, defending, like, letting these girls bully her so severely to the point where he stands there while one of the girls, the head bully, actually climbs up the diving board and pushes Max off of the end of the diving board, and he has to go in and save her. Like, you didn't see that happening and think to stop it at any point?
Yeah, he at first makes the lamest attempt to make them stop taunting her, and I was like, okay, this guy's doing his job, he's a good guy. And then they go right back to it, like, Maxie Pad, and then, as you said, she climbs the diving. I'm like, what is this guy doing? What is he being paid for?
They explain that because then we find out that the girls are putting on the fundraiser that week for his heart transplant, and he can't rock the boat with them.
Oh, see, that didn't occur to me.
Yeah,
that didn't register.
Oh
with
no,
me
it's
either.
in there. That makes a lot of sense, and that's how we find out also that he needs a new heart. So then our Maxine jumps one of the other girls and attacks her with an X-Acto knife and cuts out her heart and gives it to the coach on Valentine's Day.
The box cutter that her father killed himself with, which was a wild detail that they just kind of dropped out of nowhere.
The girl that she did, whose heart she cut out, did specifically taunt her about her father who had killed himself with that knife. So maybe not a great choice, but also understandable.
But can we also just talk about the fact that the coach, because he felt bad that Maxine was being bullied, rewrote a Valentine's card that he was originally writing for his wife or fiance or whatever, and put it in this girl's locker. Yeah. Like, how inappropriate is that for a coach to send a Valentine to one of his students? And that's kind of what sets her on the path to carve this girl's heart out and give as a gift. Like,
not quite as inappropriate as the way she turned that T into an M. I had a lot of problems with that. He starts to write his wife's name, which is, I don't know, Taylor or Tara or something, and then he turns the TA into an MA for Maxine, and I don't know if it's an OCD thing, but the T turning into an M, I was just like, no, that's
it's a stretch.
No, just scratch it out. Just write a new thing.
I mean, there's no good people in this story.
I just love the final shot, though, of just her at his door holding the heart out to him. I thought that was hilarious.
So, and that turned out to be like sort of a weird twist for me because I assumed that she was decapitating the girl at first, and then she shows up with the heart. I didn't expect her because she brings her hands up from out of the frame, and I thought she was going to bring up the girl's head, but it was instead her holding the heart.
I actually saw that coming.
Did you?
Pretty far away because the girl had been taunting her about the box cutter, and then she says to Maxine, "What are you doing to get him a new heart?" And I was like, she's gonna do something.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's not the only movie.
Like, it was so predictable.
I didn't
to
even
me.
put that together until just now.
That's not the only movie I thought was kind of predictable in this series.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
Definitely predictable.
You have this stuff where it's like thin premises with just kind of gags at the end that don't really resonate at any sort of deeper level than, it's a heart for Valentine's Day. And then you can see it coming halfway in the movie. So that's what frustrated me. I wanted more out of these movies.
I mean, I think ultimately this little project that they did, what it struck me as was, okay, around the theme of horror, let's give people a holiday prompt and then put together a story with that. I mean, that's essentially what it was, and I don't think we have to expect it to be more than that.
It's fun.
Yeah.
If they ran this at the local library and people were making movies about holidays, this would be great.
This would be great compared to everything else that would be shown, probably.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this is about as good as you're going to come up with the basic premise of 8 holiday-based prompts and 8 different filmmakers. Like, I mean, unless you give it to, Martin Scorsese and whatever other 8, master filmmakers or something.
I have to give a special shout out to the cinematographer of Valentine's Day. I thought it was shot incredibly well. I looked him up to see what else he's done. Nothing that exciting. He did a lot of shorts for collegehumor.com and stuff back in the day. But I thought the colors were great, and everything was great. I love the cinematography when she's up on the diving board and we're getting all the shots of her on the board and her feet on the edge of the board. And I loved it.
Dude, there was something about the first half of this short where I was just like, oh, this is a Chris movie. Like this is something Chris would write.
Yeah, high school.
You love high school
horror,
drama.
High school palace intrigue.
You love high school girls being like bitchy to each other.
I love high school girls being bitchy to each other. Yeah.
I did one of the things that maybe what I liked best about this whole movie, and this is a weird moment, but I like the extreme wide shot when our protagonist, I guess, is murdering the bully, and it's, like I said, a wide shot. You see a Valentine's heart-shaped candy box in the extreme foreground, and in the background she's cutting the heart out, but you can't see that at all. And it's done in very subtle sound design, and you hear the girl screaming, and then there's this weird snapping noise when she presumably cuts the heart out or whatever, that was very subtle and kind of quiet. I don't want to say buried in the mix, but it's quiet. It was just very effective and kind of very unsettling to me because it wasn't overdone.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think this particular short was extremely well produced.
I don't think any of these movies had any subtlety to them, really, at any turn.
No.
But a lot of horror doesn't, though. Horror is not the genre for subtlety.
It can be.
But it in most horror that we know and that's popular, horror's not known for being subtle.
I mean, yeah. I think Chris was looking for a little too much out of this movie.
I guess so. I was looking for some art.
Yeah.
All I found was movie.
So, okay, maybe this will prove to not be a good exercise, but would you view Q or screw this vignette?
I don't want to play that for all these.
Would anybody give a view it to this vignette?
I said I would. I don't think I would. It's all relative. I thought this was one of the better vignettes in the thing, but is it worth a view it on its own?
Well, we were just talking before about would you actually recommend one of these segments for someone to go watch it on YouTube or whatever?
Not to be watched out of this context of the movie for me.
No. Okay. All right.
Maybe other people have a different opinion.
Doesn't sound like it.
No. I mean,
there was a lot of silence when I said, "Would anybody give this a view?" The silence was deafening.
I was thinking about it because it is cute, but I don't know.
I like that you described the movie where a girl murders her bully and shows up on her teacher's doorstep with her severed heart. It's cute. I love that.
I mean, in the context, it's kind of cute.
I mean, like I said before, young love.
Yeah.
You know.
It was one of my favorite segments in the movie, and I think it's the segment that maybe is most comfortable at the intersection of the holiday it's about and horror, as opposed to something like Father's Day, which is kind of detached from the holiday. It's just kind of an interesting story about a father, that kind of thing. Or Halloween, even, which we'll get into.
We'll get
Doesn't
there.
really make the most of the Halloween holiday.
Not at all.
So,
no.
but this is definitely a Valentine's Day story as much as it is a horror story, and so I appreciate it for that reason too.
Mm-hmm. So next up is St. Patrick's Day, which, as we talked about, is about a grade school teacher who has a creepy kid in her class.
Creepy kid.
There's I don't know. I really like the directorial voice of this one, as Katie was saying. There's an Edgar Wrighty kind of there's a good energy to it that just feels like the voice of a unique creator. There's this video that they're watching about St. Patrick early on in the vignette that's about, it's like an in-class video on VHS. It's just hilarious.
It is.
St. Patrick is twirling these rubber snakes above his head and throwing them into the water in this reenactment, and it's funny and sets a good tone. I enjoy it.
And it's educational, because I had never heard that opinion of the actual St. Patrick before, which is that driving the snakes from Ireland is a metaphor for driving out druids and pagans.
Oh, you really haven't heard that before?
Hadn't heard that before.
Wow.
Yeah, so now I'm like, oh, St. Patrick, genocidal maniac.
I hadn't heard the take that there just were no snakes in Ireland.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
total bullshit, basically.
Yeah.
Well, there are now, because our hero basically gets magically impregnated with a huge snake creature because there's a little pagan kid in her class. That's the gag.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that kid is
That
creepy.
child was so frightening. Just
Great creepy smile.
creepy.
Yeah.
And the details of how this all goes down are left pretty vague, which is, I'm fine with that. But yeah, she ends up giving birth to a giant snake. She goes to see the giant snake at this pagan kind of celebration under a tree. It's a big rubber snake, and then the biggest mistake in this entire segment to me is that they show its stupid CG head with the Danny Zuko hair on it that the guy who impregnated her has. That was
that ruined it for
kind
me.
of almost a segment killer.
You were expecting
me, it
more
was.
subtlety.
I was.
I mean, I actually really, really liked it up until that point because it did have a very clear voice and tone. And I mean, this woman is impregnated with this thing for, what is it, like 400 days?
Yeah.
She's pregnant with this snake creature. And, you know, like you guys have said in a previous episode, like you see a pregnant woman in a horror movie, and you know it's not going to end well for this woman.
It's not going to be a healthy baby.
It's not going to be a good time. And so she's pregnant with a snake creature, and she gives birth to it in a bathtub, which is a pretty gnarly scene.
Yes.
And then at the end, there's this pagan festival, and all these people are coming out of the long grasses wearing white, and these different animal head masks and things like that, and they present her with her snake baby, and she accepts it.
Very kill list.
But then you have the father is Danny Zuko, and the snake has Danny Zuko hair. And for me, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, why would you? Why?
And the snake starts singing Summer Nights in Gaelic.
That did not happen, unfortunately. But I would have been there for it.
It just totally, the Danny Zuko thing totally killed the tone for me. Totally killed the mood.
Yeah.
And it made it laughable.
And it was totally unnecessary, especially at that late point in the thing. I mean, because this segment does have humor to it. Like I said, I mean, the St. Patrick video is very funny, at least to me. But it just felt like a joke that didn't need to be there. In a segment that was all otherwise creepy, you know? Like, giving birth to a giant snake is fucked up.
Here's the utility of that joke. The utility is we see her, like, waking up after St. Patrick's Day, and you hear her friend say, "Oh, I didn't see you since you went off with that Danny Zuko fellow." That's fine. We understand that, like, that maybe there was a romantic interlude, and that explains why she's pregnant, etc. So you have to do something to link that to the pagan ceremony. But if you didn't have a guy who was recognizably Danny Zuko, you would have to go back and shoot a scene where she's like in a bar looking at a guy who then later shows up and looks at you at the pagan ceremony or something. And that would be too subtle, perhaps.
But why did it have to be Danny Zuko? I mean, that hair.
It should have been, you went off with that guy who looked like Steve Buscemi. And then Steve Buscemi's actually at the pagan ceremony.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi.
I would have gone for that.
I mean, it especially bothered me because I liked that when they were first bringing the snake baby to her, that it was clearly just like a rubber snake that all these people were holding. And I'm down for that. You know, I love practical effects. And I was like, okay, this doesn't look great, but they're shooting around the head. They're not showing us the head. That's great. You know, we can work with this. And then just like the dumbest looking CGI head. Otherwise, I'm all in on this segment.
Yes.
It
bugged the heck out of me.
I thought, I mean, from fairly early on in this segment, I thought this was just bonkers and just wild, and I loved it. I was so there for it. And I don't hate the off-the-wall ending because I'm not sure where else you could go without having to take more time to explain it. So just present them with this absolutely bonkers scenario and leave your audience being like, what the fuck did I just watch? And end it there.
I wish it had ended there. Then we go back and we see that the little girl's going to run the same play on her new teacher, who's a nun, apparently.
Yeah, I didn't find that necessary. I would have enjoyed it better if it ended with like the 70s style, like Iris in on freeze frames of her dancing with the snake. Those were delightful. Would anybody give this segment a view it?
I'm not giving any of them a view it, so you can
take that to the bank.
Take that to the bank.
I'd be so close to like actively recommending this segment to people, and I might actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I might be like, this is great, but also you have to see this insanely bad creative choice that they make towards the end.
I guess it was another one of my favorites, though.
Yeah,
from the film.
I would have given it a view it if not for Danny Zuko.
Yes, Exactly.
That killed it.
Danny
for me. I'm
Zuko
sorry.
ruins everything.
It was distracting. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
It was very cheesy. Very cheesy.
Yeah, just a
But what?
odd
And he's
choice.
wearing a black leather jacket that has a snake
on it,
emblem
yeah.
on the back. But not the same snake emblem that they're showing in the rest of the movie.
That's a really good point. Yeah, they keep bringing back the spiral snake motif.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they completely missed a beautiful opportunity to use it again.
Yeah.
Oh, which that is a really cool little visual nod when she's in the car in the parking lot and there's a spiral of shopping carts surrounding her car. That was a cool callback.
And
to that
in the
motif.
playground, she finds herself in the middle of the spiral too.
Yeah.
And then, Grania, the little girl, gives her like this snake made out of grass that's in a spiral.
Yes. Good stuff. So, a segment that I will reveal up front that I absolutely would give it to is the Easter segment.
Oh, really?
No,
This segment is bonkers, and I love it.
no.
Let me tell you something about this Easter segment before we get into the weeds on that. Before we get into the Easter grass on that. It was written and directed by Nicholas McCarthy. Now, you may have forgotten who, like I did, who is Nicholas McCarthy.
Yeah.
He is the director of At the Devil's Goddamn Door.
Wow.
And he's the director of The Prodigy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw that. Oh, no.
No, you didn't see The Prodigy, but I instant message
You recapped it in excruciating detail.
One day I was just talking to Patrick online, and I just typed out the entire synopsis, the most in-depth synopsis you could ever imagine of The Prodigy the day after I saw it.
This is why I feel like I did see it.
Line by line, blow by blow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
I mean, he
amazing.
practically rewrote the screenplay in
They just transcribed
instant
it,
message form. Yeah.
basically. But yeah,
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm glad that you're keeping tabs on these directors because I've been wondering if any of them are actually notable in any way other than Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is about. I mean, so a great opening scene. I really enjoy the exchange between the mom and the child in the opening scene because it feels very real. Like the girl keeps asking all these questions about the Easter Bunny and Jesus and Easter and the resurrection, and the mom is
Questions
trying.
to which there are no good answers for.
And she's so confused. She's like, where does the Easter Bunny come in with the resurrection of Christ? And like, she's trying to make sense of it, and her mom can't make sense of it, and she's like, nah, just believe.
and the mom is doing her best, and then at some point she's just like, all right, just go to sleep, like it's all gonna be okay, there'll be Easter candy in the morning, like shut the fuck up. And overnight, basically the worst nightmare vision that a child could summon from this vague description of Jesus and the Easter Bunny, just this insane amalgam of the crucified Jesus and a bunny appears in the house. And it is horrifying.
It was absolute nightmare fuel.
Zombie bunny Jesus is the
was
best way to describe
horrifying.
it.
And I think it's a man in a suit.
100%.
It's
You can tell
yeah.
the way that mask moves.
Yeah.
That is
because the eyeballs don't move.
That's so bad. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but the mask was
I thought
awful.
it looked great.
Oh, I love it.
I wouldn't even say man in a suit. I would say it was just a incredible prosthetic work.
Yeah, it was
Right.
definitely makeup
I
work.
just meant as opposed to CGI.
Oh yeah, he looked great.
I loved it as well.
He looked great, and yeah, this was another movie where I was trying to fish for meaning. I don't know if there's anything there.
There's no meaning to any of
It
these.
feels like when you take the figure of Jesus Christ and transform him so much that would be done with some kind of intention.
No, absolutely
That's why
not.
I'm looking for meaning.
No, it's
this
just
is the nightmares of any child raised in the Catholic Church. Like
Right.
you hear about, there's the Easter Bunny and there's Jesus' resurrection, and this is what happens when you combine these two things. You get a zombie Easter Jesus, and it's. I feel like this is this director and this writer bringing his nightmares as a child, being raised in church or something to light.
yeah, it's just kind of preying on the over-imaginative mind of any creative child, I would say.
But the creature was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, we should describe it. So, I mean, it's Jesus. He's got the stigmata. He's got the crown of thorns. He's naked except for a loincloth. He crouches and kind of hops like a bunny. He has a naked, like, human face, but has bunny ears that are also just
He's definitely got like a
careless.
bunny face.
he has
it's a bunny
nose
face.
and mouth he's got jowls like a rabbit.
And whiskers and, like, a little
It's
nose
gnarly.
that should twitch.
And the ears, but it's all, none of it is fur. It's all like human skin. So
Yes.
his ears are just
And he's
not
very
wrong.
moist.
He is.
He's very moist.
He's extremely moist.
It's-
Well, I think he
it's
hatches
disgusting.
from the egg that rolls in the door.
Yes, yeah, that's right. An egg rolls in. He hatches out of that. He hatches little baby chicks out of his stigmata. It is a gnarly creative vision.
Do you call the whole stigmata, or stigmata just wounds that mimic the appearance of the?
I don't know. Let's ask the Catholic.
This is beside the point. Because I know that if my hands start bleeding, that's stigmata. But if you're actually Jesus, I don't know if it's called stigmata.
I don't know.
But we
Not
know
sure.
we know what we're talking about. We're talking about he's
Right.
got the hole still,
Right, and he
Yeah.
also has the gash in his
Yes.
side.
Yes.
and he makes the girl put her fingers in it.
Oh,
Yeah, that was
disgusting.
disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is just insane. Insane creative vision.
You know, all right. Yeah, I didn't really like this one at the time. And again, it seemed like kind of just a one-trick pony kind of story. But
So I'm curious, what's a short? Tell me a short that had that you saw that had depth to it.
in my life,
Yeah, I mean, especially like within a. So I mean, you know, you see the Oscar-nominated shorts every year. There's depth to those, but it's hard to get depth across in a short, especially a horror short.
yeah,
Like you're-
that's a good point.
Like you're gonna go for like sort of an over the top thrill of some sort.
Maybe I have an unrealistic standard. I think Mother's Day, which we're about to get to, had some themes that it was going for.
I am intrigued to get there.
I'm not saying I have it figured out, but I think there was a lot more subtext in that one than this one. I don't know. I guess I'm looking for subtext.
So, I mean, the Easter one ends kind of abruptly. The Easter zombie Jesus tells the girl that she's going to replace him, and she basically becomes zombie Easter Jesus, and that's pretty much it.
That was a good scene. That might be actually my favorite scene.
With the ears growing out of her head in
not
shadow.
Not that part, but where the Easter Bunny and the girl are just having a conversation, and it kind of mimics the conversation the girl is having with her mother, where she's got all these questions about, wait, you're saying I have to become an Easter Bunny now? Well, you know, what if I don't want to? Will I ever, you know? And he's like, you'll never see your mother ever again.
Yeah. And she's just kind of like, okay.
I was invested in that scene more than anything else in this anthology, maybe.
Okay, so this was officially the point in the movie where I realized we've just watched 4?
That was number
3.
Three movies written and directed by men, all about female characters, all of whom are in some way like missing or pining after a man in their life. It's like, interesting theme here.
That was interesting. And you know what? Because you see the list of directors at the beginning of the movie. So, like, I knew Kevin Smith was there. And this is actually the one that I thought might be Kevin Smith before the Halloween one started.
Oh, no, you haven't seen enough
No.
Kevin Smith.
Yeah, I knew Kevin Smith's the second it started, like before anybody even entered or was speaking. I was like, "That's Kevin Smith."
Oh, yeah, for sure. Once we got to that one.
Okay.
But when this one started and I hadn't seen the Kevin Smith one yet, I was like, is this Kevin Smith, like, making the zombie
Dogma.
Jesus rabbit?
Yeah.
It seems like it's his kind of thing. But no, I was trying to figure out which one's Kevin Smith, and I was trying to figure out which one is the female-directed one. And, yeah, you wait a while.
Yeah, so we might as well get to that one.
Yeah.
I guess.
Mother's Day.
I'm
mean, did anybody have any other thoughts on the Easter one?
I really liked the creativity of this horrific creature trying to bring in. I don't know. It shows the absurdity of trying to hide the pagan holiday while still bringing in elements of it into the Christian celebration of Easter. It makes no sense to include bunny rabbits and eggs in a celebration about the resurrection of Jesus. And I like how it shows the absurdity of trying to bring these two very different things together.
Just going for the most horrific possible amalgamation of the two.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
a great image.
Yeah. So, Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
This one didn't do much for me. I'm going to be low energy Jeb on this one because it didn't do much for me. So
I didn't care for this one at all.
Yeah, so someone who has strong feelings about it, like
I liked it. So we have, like I said, we have a woman. I guess her name's Kate. She keeps getting pregnant, and after like her 20th abortion or something, her doctor sends her out to this desert commune thing where there's a bunch of women who are trying to get pregnant, and they end up drugging her, and they're like, "Oh no, you're special. You're a gateway." Her labor really kicks into high gear at this place. She's being held there against her will on the influence of drugs. She almost escapes, but goes into labor, and then a big, bloody, full-size adult arm comes out of her as she's delivering, and that's the end. Gotcha.
So, and I guess my problem with this actually is similar to the complaint you've been articulating about most of the other ones, is that this feels like it's just building to a single, very brief punchline. It sets a very sort of subdued tone and feels like it's building to something more, something a little more character-based. And then it literally, the final shot that lasts a split second is just this bloody arm coming up from between her legs. And I felt nothing, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I felt like it was trying to portray like subtlety and nuance and everything, but I'm like, who are these people? Why do they have her there? Why is she pregnant? What is she pregnant with? And like, why is she and this baby so special to them? And then you see at the end that a fully formed arm comes out. It's like, okay, well, what is that thing? And why does it matter to these women?
I think it was just a cult, and their ideology, whatever influence they might be having on the pregnancy, is kind of irrelevant. I think, for me, I mean, I thought it was very abstract, but I felt like they were trying to get at something or depict some kind of, very similar to like Rosemary's Baby. The horror here is like the horror of not being in control of your reproductive choices.
That's what I kind of got out of it.
And so I feel like there's some subtext there when you have women who, I mean, this is something that women who don't want children or are unable to have children encounter all the time in real life, where you have people who love children and want children and maybe, you know, and they don't understand that point of view. So she's in the support group for women who can't get pregnant, and as soon as she tells them that her problem is that she can't stop getting pregnant, she's a pariah. And so I thought that was interesting. And, you know, I don't know, having the visual of a full-size arm coming out, and then I think it grabs her leg, right?
Yeah, it does.
That's the last thing you see. I feel like it's just trying to say something. I mean, I'm not one to talk too much about the experience of a woman, but...
So I mean, this one didn't like hit as hard for me as some of the other ones, but I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was, I mean, I can't speak for the filmmakers if they were trying to go in depth with anything, but for me, it's a kind of an interesting take on like how society kind of forces motherhood on a lot of people, and how even when it comes down to it, sometimes women aren't always supportive of each other's choices to or to not be mothers. That was interesting. And I just thought, like, to really bring home the horror, the whole like hand coming out at the end was particularly fascinating, but that also made sense because earlier on they mentioned how every time she destroys the life, it grows stronger. So that visual kind of, I think, brought that back.
I agree. I liked that moment where the woman is rude to our protagonist about the fact that she conceives every time. You know, she's like, oh, wow, that must be a terrible problem to have. I mean, I think that's a good moment, but I don't think we should mistake that moment for being the whole movie, the whole short film, because otherwise, like, there's not a lot.
And I wasn't saying that it was. I just think that's a kind of an interesting thing that's sort of placed in there that is also like relevant in this whole story that's about forced motherhood.
Yeah, I don't know. The rape stuff is also really weird. There's this
I forgot about that.
Shows up and like clearly impregnates her. That stuff is all really weird and just weirdly sort of like tossed off. It's very just feels very cursory to me.
It's various iterations on a theme throughout. It's like Get Out, but for women who don't want to have kids.
Wow, that is an absurd statement.
You know, she doesn't want to have kids. There is that moment, but that's just one of the many things that happens. You know, she's forced to participate in these fertility ceremonies that she's uncomfortable with. She tries to leave. They don't let her. They end up drugging her.
I mean, honestly, why is she there?
Because her doctor gave her the suggestion as a last resort because nothing else was working. And of course, the doctor's in on it too. So it's like, there you go. You can't trust your doctor. You're going out to this desert thing. You can't trust anyone there. There's some sinister male figure there who shows up when you're at your like most vulnerable moment. You're forced to have a baby. You're poisoned in the oatmeal. It's just a lot of stuff. And but I don't say it works entirely. Like it didn't hit me in the soul and say yes, that's it. But it had subtext. It had something that it was trying to hint at or get at or illustrate more so than, I showed up at my swim teacher's door with a heart because he needs a heart and it's Valentine's Day. There's more to it. So I appreciate that. This was the only movie that even attempted to do something that was left to interpretation.
I love your ongoing quest for subtext in this movie.
Yeah. And this one,
I appreciate it.
This one has it. I will say that.
All right. Any other thoughts on the Mother's Day segment? Would anybody view it? Give it a view it. No. Okay.
Well, I'm not going to view any of these, but I did appreciate what it was going for. And although, interestingly, because I think we mentioned this, it is one of the ones that has the most tenuous connection to the actual holiday.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It has nothing to do with Mother's Day,
I'll agree with
except
that.
There's a throwaway line. It's like someone forgot one of the required elements in their 48-hour film challenge, and so they just add a line where it's like,
Happy Mother's Day, Mama.
by the way, it's Mother's Day. And that's it. But it is all about motherhood. So that's interesting. And that's an interesting thing too. This filmmaker clearly took the assignment of Mother's Day and made a piece about how she sees motherhood.
Yeah.
As opposed to, St. Patrick's Day being about, this is how I feel about Well, I don't know. That was an Irish filmmaker for St. Patrick's Day. So that maybe that's how he feels about St. Patrick.
Well, yeah. And the Mother's Day one was the only one written and directed by a female, if I'm not mistaken.
And, the Halloween one was written and directed by a ghoul. So,
oh, got him.
Father's Day. Katie, you really reacted to this, so I want to hear from you first.
I thought I loved it. I thought it was so atmospheric, and just as she's following these tapes this tape that her father had left her, and we start to discover as she's walking and retracing the steps that he's guiding her down, that he's actually recording. He recorded this while she was with him as a child. And that to me was so creepy and unsettling. And I'm like, where is he leading her? Why is he not in her life? Like, I was thinking, and when she's looking through the pictures, like, is he a serial killer? Like, is he in prison? Like, what's his deal? And as he's leading her kind of on this journey years later, it was very spooky, very creepy to me. And I was like, where is this leading to? So I liked that.
I did feel a lot of suspense about where this was going, because he walks her through these directions, these different streets. And then I was like, where's this winding up?
Because at this point too, like, it was all very dilapidated. It must have been like a booming seaside,
looks like Atlantic
entertainment
City. Actually, I've never been to Atlantic City.
Thing.
Atlantic City looks like dog shit.
It looks like what I imagined.
I've been there. Don't go.
But it looks like an old, like a dilapidated seaside resort town or boardwalk or something like that.
It had a lot
Don't fuck with Jersey. All our Jersey listeners are going to come for you now.
Dude, I just started watching The Sopranos, so I'm not going to fuck with anybody.
It had like kind of like a Silent Hill vibe to me, which I really enjoyed about it.
You want to talk about Silent Hill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about Silent Hill? Yeah, you're right.
What the fuck you know about Pyramid Head?
I know. I saw a picture online of a pyramid head made out of like pizza boxes.
I saw that.
Sweet.
That was so great.
Wearing like a pizza apron.
I might have to put that in Pizza Face Killer.
Yeah, you might have to.
All right, so well, let's explain briefly. So she gets the tapes and ends up following her dad's footsteps into some sort of area where the tape is like, oh, now you're here of your own free will. Now we're together again. And there's a figure in a chair who turns around, and I guess that's her dad, but he's some kind of unholy thing.
Yeah, I don't think that was her dad, though, because he was saying, like, he has an appointment to see... Because the dad was saying on the tape, like, I have an appointment to see him. Or,
yes.
You're going to see him.
The demon.
So it was some sort of demon.
The demon pretends he's the one you love. Or I don't know.
Which would make
I thought that, like, the
sense.
father had given himself over to this demon and was...
Sure, I understand.
Oh, shit.
I don't
Siri is
either.
talking to me. Siri is talking to me. Good night, Siri.
Goddamn iPad.
But I think that the dad had willingly given himself over to this demon. At least this is my interpretation. The dad had willingly given himself over to this demon and had left these breadcrumbs for his daughter to follow so that she could eventually give herself over to the demon and they could be together again. And she had to be there of her own free will in order to do that.
It's very abstract, and I think it's more terrifying because it's so abstract. Yeah. And I feel like an idiot because I watched this whole... Because they start... Does anyone remember what the first shot of this movie is?
I thought it was the box for the Father's Day box.
The first shot of this movie is Planet Earth with like the moon.
Right. Yes.
Oh. Which recurs. We see, because I guess there's an eclipse happening of some sort.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So we see like the moon going across the Earth at an angle that we're very unused to seeing in movies. And something about that made me think, and I feel like a fool saying it, that the dad was gone because he was an astronaut. This whole time.
I mean, that's fair. There's no reason in the end that... Because we see recurring shots of this eclipse.
We see the eclipse and we hear him talking about... It sounds very much like a tape you would leave for your daughter before you went on the interstellar mission that you're not going to come back from. And she thought he was dead this whole time.
Mm-hmm. He's the astronaut's... No, she's the astronaut's daughter.
Yeah, the astronaut's daughter. And so I was like, oh, I'm ready for the sci-fi twist. I'm ready for her to go see the aliens and shit. And I thought that was where that was going. And then even when that thing was sitting in a chair, I'm like, oh, that's the alien. No, it's I don't know, but
you were going full X-Files on this.
Yeah,
I want the ending of this film to just be the X-Files opening.
You know what
credits.
I decided? Yeah, that would work. You know what I decided? I think I might have told Patrick this, but you know why presidents age in office? It's not about the stress of the job. It's because when you're the president and you go talk to the alien, you have to enter his time space, and his gravitational force accelerates time.
Yeah.
So you go talk to the alien for 20 minutes, you come out of the black vault, and you have aged 10 years.
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
That does make sense.
I agree.
I believe that.
Yep.
Yeah, this vignette didn't do a ton for me personally. I did enjoy Jocelyn Donahue's performance. I think she always brings it.
Brings it more than she did in Dead Awake.
Yeah, that's true. I guess she didn't bring it that much in Dead Awake.
I felt like a fucking idiot for being like, oh, I like Jocelyn Donahue, and then we watched Dead Awake, and people were like, why do you like her, Chris? Because she's hot? I'm like... I thought she's a good actress. Now I'm like, okay, yeah, she's a good actress.
Yeah, and I mean, in this, she's alone for most of it and having to do some like difficult character shit and make some big decisions throughout.
It's a one-woman show.
Yeah, yeah.
One woman, one demon.
Yeah,
and a tape recorder.
Yeah. Any view-its for Father's Day?
I want to say yes, but I already said I wouldn't give any of these a view.
That's okay. You can go back on your word.
I'm actually going to take back what I said earlier with one of them being view-its, and I would call this one a view-it.
Okay.
I like this one a lot. I want to know more about the story with the dad and the demon, and like who is this demon, and you know.
Yeah.
I need some more answers. I liked the feeling overall and the creep factor, and it really drew me in.
I mean, I will say I thought it established a good mood. It just, I don't know, didn't leave much of a mark on me afterwards.
That's fair.
It's one of the, I think, short films that could have been expanded upon. Like, you could create like a full length film potentially out of this. Obviously, you'd have to add a lot more. It wouldn't just be like this moment drawn out. But I think you could make a very interesting film out of this one.
Maybe. I would hope so. I agree with what you're saying. I'm reminded of, how a lot of filmmakers will make short films with the intention of maybe developing them or getting funding to make a feature version. I mean, that happened with Saw. That happened with Cargo, our favorite movie. And this could do the same kind of thing. Except I don't know if it's... I don't know. It's what would a longer version of this movie look like? The mystery, what we don't know, is what's so intriguing. And I don't know how much longer you can stretch that out.
Yeah,
I'd be interested in seeing. I'd be interested in seeing someone try. I'd be interested in seeing a horror version of Interstellar where Dad is an astronaut.
That's called The Astronaut's Wife.
I looked up the director of Father's Day. His name is Anthony Scott Burns, and now I have not seen any of the Tron movies. Have you?
Yeah.
No.
I saw the newer ones. I haven't seen the old ones.
But the premise of Tron, and I actually thought of Tron as I was watching this, because isn't that kind of the premise? It's like, oh, your dad got lost in the game.
Yeah.
And you gotta
New
go get
one.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what if I told you that Anthony Scott Burns on IMDb has a Tron short on his resume?
That tracks, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So maybe this is just some leftover stuff, or some stuff he was thinking about while he was making his little Tron movie.
Tron leftovers. A Tron legacy, one might say.
yes.
Maybe his dad, maybe the dad, Jocelyn Donahue's dad, was just gaming. Maybe that's what he looks like because he drank too much Monster Energy.
Yes. And he's
Playing Death Stranding for 36 hours, 30 years straight.
It you.
It's me.
and all he ever wanted was to play video games with his daughter. And now she's old enough where she can appreciate
Now
them.
they got 2-player.
Yeah.
But the second controller's batteries are dead because it's been 30 years.
He just wanted her to play Metal Gear Solid.
Just want them to play MGS.
All right, well, on to Halloween.
Halloween.
God.
In
One
which
more short
Kevin Smith explores the horror of male anal penetration and vibrators, which is the scariest thing that Kevin Smith can seem to come up
Yeah,
with.
it's like the horror of abusing women with consequence.
I mean, I would say this is the first of 2 movies in which a male director thinks he's a male writer / director thinks he's making a hot shit feminist movie because the women get their revenge.
Yeah, they turn the tables.
Very Tarantino. Yeah. So, I mean, there's, as Chris described him earlier, a Kevin Smith stand-in who is a kind of like a pimp for cam girls. And, God, there's so little plot. I mean, basically, the cam girls, he's an asshole. The cam girls turn against him, lock him in a cam room, super glue a vibrator inside his asshole, and attach it to a car battery that they control remotely, and then instruct him to show them his pussy, by which they mean they want him to cut a pussy in his genitalia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crude. It's like I wasn't gonna describe it because I don't wanna. It's like it's another one of these shorts that's very thin, and the detail is just all gratuitous, like shock, like, oh look, we put a vibrator up his ass. Haha, gotcha.
Yeah, and the only connection this one had was it was on Halloween night.
Yeah.
There was really no real connection.
Yeah, that he was forcing the girls to stay in and work on Halloween, even though nobody was calling in because everybody's at Halloween parties on Halloween.
Which, and theoretically, this should have been one of the easiest ones to tie to the holiday because it's a fucking horror movie. Like, there's so many opportunities. I didn't even think about that until just now, how little this has to do with Halloween.
Yeah, you could have done so much more with Halloween.
Yeah.
It's like they called Kevin Smith and he's like, well, I have this idea for a movie about cam girls who kill their guy.
Yeah.
I guess it could take place on Halloween.
Well, I was thinking about super gluing a dildo up an asshole. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Really didn't turn the dial.
Gosh, yeah, almost. I mean, for a movie in which a vibrator gets super glued inside a guy's ass and he then cuts his junk off to create a vagina, there's not a lot to say about it.
No. And so Kevin Smith's daughter, Harley Quinn Smith, is in this one, and she's kind of the leader of the 3, and she gives this speech about how the 3 of them together are witches.
A coven,
and
yeah.
They're a coven and the power of women in 3s. But it is the most unintimidating speech.
Their acting skills were not...
They left a lot to be desired.
Yep.
Like, it was supposed to be this powerful speech about the power of women, and it just was like, it just rang so hollow. And then the idea that these women, he's been controlling them for a long time, and they don't really have any spines. But then for them to go from that to all of a sudden, oh, they knocked him out and they've done all this stuff to him, and they went from kind of whimpering, helpless people to creative and ingenious and very sadistic, like the flip of a switch. I'm like, what? It just I mean, I'm all for suspending disbelief when watching horror movies, but it didn't feel
There was
right
no
to me at all. No.
Yeah, in what they were willing to do before then.
No, not at all.
And I think that's because this is a movie about Kevin Smith wanting to feel like he's, big bad feminist filmmaker making a big bad a little bad feminist short.
I guess
Than it is about actually building characters and doing anything character based,
through a depiction of like abuse, which has no depth to it,
right?
And it's like, the issue with any sort of abusive situation like that is not like. It seems so shallow to have that switch and be like, oh, now they're gonna like get their revenge and stuff like. I don't know.
Well, so I just want to pick up on what Katie was saying about the Coven too, because that's really set up as something that. I mean, especially because it's a short that takes place on Halloween. It's like, oh shit, they're gonna do some witchy shit.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh,
that goes nowhere.
Give me a movie. All right, it's all the same. They lock them up in the room. They put them on cam. They can even, harass them in the way that they did on cam. But then you have them like cut back to them in the kitchen watching the webcam, and they also have their like book of spells, on their phone, and they're like, just fucking around in the kitchen, being like, oh, do we have any like fucking sage? And they're like, oh, no.
Yeah, or one of them's like, is the vibrator working? There's like, there's no vibrator in there. We just stuck a cord up his ass.
And then cut away, and then like
the vibrator is a spell.
When the new girl shows up at the end, as she does in the film, like she knocks and like opens the door and she sees something horrific going on.
Yeah,
it's like some legitimate witch shit going on.
They make this joke that he's no longer with the company because of cutbacks, but
what I was going to say was I don't think Kevin Smith was going for some feminist story at all. I think he just wanted to make a gross out, kind of raunchy little horror vignette. That's what I got. He wanted to make something that was kind of fun. And you know what? It was kind of fun. It wasn't good. The acting was terrible, but it was also kind of fun.
A little bit, yeah.
Sure, I don't know. I didn't have a lot of fun.
See, I thought it was kind of fun too.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't good, but it was just like,
It approaches
good
fun
for them
in the kind of like lowbrow comedy way, which I mean, not to cast judgment on it for this, because I was laughing a little bit, but like when you have two people who are like just completely foul, saying depraved shit to each other, it's entertaining.
Yeah. It's not supposed to be. I don't think it was
Patrick the way I did.
I don't think it was going for anything more than that, is what I mean to say. And so for what it was going for just being this kind of like, is a little bit gratuitous.
Yeah, but it kind of went there more than the other ones did.
Yeah,
like it took things farther than any of the others did.
And here's my problem: when you put a guy in a Saw scenario, which is basically what he's in, he's being told that to survive he has to mutilate himself. I start thinking like, oh, how's he going to get out of this? Well, we've established that he's got like a household like vibrator cord going into his body, and then they give him a big ass knife.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Just cut the knife, bro. Cut the wire.
Cut the cord.
Yeah,
cut the cord. Was he in a mental space to make that kind of decision?
I feel like that's a pretty basic. Yeah. That's a pretty basic logic.
Not asking him to do algebra.
How often have you been stuck in that situation?
Okay, I would cut the cord. I would look for every other opportunity other than to perform surgery involving removing my own genitals.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd definitely try cutting the cord first. All right, well, onwards to the Christmas short, which, how does this technology work? There's this virtual reality technology that everybody's murdering each other to get.
Don't care how it works. Loved it.
Did you?
I mean, I thought it was an interesting premise. Basically, there's a virtual reality headset that is somehow... it reminds me of something in literature. I don't know what it is. Or maybe like the mirror in Harry Potter, where like the way it works is it gives you a virtual reality fantasy that's tailored to you and your psychology and your memories. Great concept. And a man is desperate to get one, but the last one at the store is in the hands of some businessman who conveniently drops dead in the parking lot. He has the opportunity to save him, but instead he decides to steal his shit because he's got an overbearing wife who's like texting him like, did you get it? Did you get it? And he doesn't want to let her down.
The dude has a heart attack or something, and he needs like his heart pills.
He needs his pills.
And the guy chooses to steal the toy instead of giving the guy his
Not
pill.
just steal the toy and give him the pills, but steal the toy and
let the dude die.
Let the guy die.
And like step on some of the pills as he leaves.
And so that just sets up a beautiful like a monkey's paw scenario, or one of my favorite tales from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Wait, what's a monkey's paw?
The monkey's paw.
Oh.
The monkey's paw grants you wishes.
The wishes.
Oh, okay.
But actually, I don't think anyone kills anyone to get it in the story, or do they? But it corrupts all your wishes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All your wishes go awry.
Where is the story? What's the story from?
Oh, it's just a traditional.
The monkey's
like
paw.
Old
Yeah.
folk
It's an oldie.
thing.
It's an oldie
Yeah.
but goodie.
Yeah.
But Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark has a story called The Bed by the Window, which I've told Patrick about before, where there's 3 men in a nursing home, and they're the one closest to the window is always talking about how beautiful the views are. And then when he dies, the next person moves down and talks about how beautiful the views are. And the third guy can't take it anymore. So same situation. The guy's heart attack pills are on the nightstand, and he moves them so he can't get them. And so he dies, and the third guy gets to move by the window, but all he sees at the window is a brick wall.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, this is interesting. You have something that like shows you something, a desirable product that is tapped into your psyche, and you killed a man to get it, and now you're going to give it to your son. It doesn't really make the most of that concept.
So, and I mean, yeah, and we haven't really explained where it goes with this, but I mean, at first the guy takes the thing from his son and puts it on and sees like a BDSM scene, like he's living out his sexual fantasies, and then it transitions to him seeing the scene of the guy dying while he steals his toy from the dying guy's perspective, which why? Don't know why. Like,
Right.
I mean, I guess it's supposed to be like a 1% to 2% of the time this toy malfunctions. That's explained later in the movie as well. And then he sees his wife who has killed her boss, and
But first, like the wife, like he goes to work or something, and he gets home, and his wife is standing there, and he's like, "Where's our kid?" She's
Oh,
like,
right.
And the wife has seen in the technology what her husband has done.
yeah, the sex. Oh no, she saw the sexual fantasy.
No, she sees
She
the
says
murder.
the murder.
Yeah, because
No,
she says you forgot to log out, and he's
Yeah.
like, you didn't see it. She's like, I saw everything, and he's like, what did he?
She's like, why did you just tell me one
yeah.
thing? Why did you do it?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
he's like, because he had what I wanted, and I'm tired of being nice. And
The ultimate aphrodisiac.
yeah, and then she's like, that's the hottest thing you've ever said to me, and they have sex on the floor.
I didn't remember the reference to the crime being so explicit. I read it as that she saw the sexual fantasy, and it turned out she was actually into it too.
No, she saw
No,
it.
that's
She
not-
totally
yeah.
saw the crime.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought that was supposed to be the little twist or the joke of the scene.
And then it's mirrored because later on he puts it on after his wife's been using it and finds out that his wife is a murderer who just killed the guy who got the promotion at work that she thought she deserved. Or her boss. Who gave those promotions. But
Yeah.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other. She killed somebody. So basically then he's unsettled because now he's sharing a house with a murderer.
Yeah.
A crazed murderer who carved up her boss with a turkey carver.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a nice touch because it was Christmas.
It was a good tribute to the holiday.
Yeah. But, whatever.
it was fun.
Not the best Christmas horror story I've ever seen.
I mean, it was neat, but honestly, like, of all of them, this one didn't really do all that much for me. I think in the context of the whole thing, this one was on the more forgettable side.
Yeah, it struck me as a really half-assed Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
Because there was this sort of futuristic technology, but it only did what it needed to do for the plot at any given point. Like, it never worked in a consistent way. It's like, oh, now it's showing flashbacks. It's showing the husband and wife flashbacks of each other's past. Oh, it's showing your fantasy. So I don't know. It was just very
it
inconsistent.
was arbitrary. I didn't really need it to be anything else, though. I was like, okay, I'll accept that this is a magic visor that does whatever is necessary for the plot, whatever. But I wish that there had been something more universal about that and the whole story, rather than like, what if you were married to someone who's killer?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Like, I don't know.
Also kind of carrying on some of the toxic male viewpoints in this film, because the wife is just a fucking like caricature shrew.
Yeah, and when she's a murderer, we're as opposed to our hero Seth Green, who is a murderer, but we totally sympathize with him the whole time. She is just batshit. Like,
Yeah. This is reminding me of how there was like a severe downhill slide in the back half of this to me, because like Father's Day was okay but didn't do a lot for me. didn't like Halloween, didn't like Christmas. And I'm not crazy about New Year's Eve, which is up next.
I was about ready to go to bed. I was like, okay, this movie's over, right? That feels like I've been watching it for 2.5 hours already. And then I see that this next segment starts with like flipping through a photo album with like pictures of people through all the holidays of the year. And I'm like, oh, this is the little wrap-up vignette. This is when we find out that the mall Santa was actually the murderer or whatever. And no, we got one more vignette to get through. New Year's Eve. What are you doing New Year's Eve?
And I will say I disagree. I didn't feel like it felt that long. It actually kind of snapped by for me because the segments were so quick. It moved to me anyway.
There was just a lot of segments, more than I'm used to seeing.
There were, yeah. But yeah, New Year's Eve. Who summarized this before? You summarized it, right, Katie? Or who summarized?
Yes, I did.
You did a very good vague job because it's almost spoilery from the get-go because you're right into the serial killer's lair and he kills someone in the opening moments, which I guess is not spoilery, but it's still kind of it was a shocking moment to me that girl got killed so early on. I guess I wouldn't want to spoil that for someone.
The premise is basically, what if you went out with a serial killer that you met online? What if the person you dated online turned out to be a serial killer? And then what if there were 2 serial killers going on a date?
Yeah.
That's the
So what happens is like the guy who you see at the beginning, who is definitely a murderer, most likely a psychopath, and probably a serial killer.
Possibly a bad dude.
Possibly a psychopath.
Like he might
Possibly a
pay his
psychopath.
taxes late or something.
I mean, you never know. It might have been his first murder, but probably not.
Yeah.
I remember my first murder.
So he murders the first victim that we see him murder, and he decides to get back out there because he just wants to be loved.
He wants to kiss someone at midnight on
He
New
wants
Year's.
to kiss someone at midnight on New Year's.
Who doesn't?
You cut to this shot of this woman sitting on her couch listening to sad music. She's alone, and she gets a message from him, I think, on her dating
She
profile.
seeks him out, I think.
I don't know.
Because she's
Either
there
way.
and she's like, well, another New Year's Eve by myself. She's like, oh, I should just... Blah, blah, blah. And then she gets on, and then she sees
On
this guy.
perfectmatch.com.
She sees this guy that we recognize as our serial killer protagonist.
And so then they go out on a date together. It's New Year's Eve. They're wearing New Year's Eve hats and having a very awkward dinner.
Great scene. I like that a lot.
Yeah. It was...
Cringe. Good cringe comedy.
Because it's interesting. You could tell that he really wants to be liked by her, and his issue with his last victim was she didn't like him. Crazy. The woman seems disinterested. She is disinterested, and you think she's gonna cut it off, and he's gonna seek revenge and kidnap her. But she invites him back to her place
to watch the ball drop. Doesn't want to be alone.
He goes to the bathroom to freshen up, finds her collection of dead bodies, finds her collection of eyeballs in jars with men's names.
And then
men's names,
which I saw coming as soon as she invited him home.
Oh,
Same.
really?
I did
I
not
did too.
at all.
I did not either.
I did not see the twist coming, but was very satisfied when it did.
I'm like,
Actually, he wasn't going into the bathroom to freshen up. He was going in there to prepare his chloroform.
yeah.
To murder her.
He was getting ready to kidnap her, and she turned those tables. Oh, my favorite part was there was the line of jars with the men's names on it with eyeballs in it, and then there was an empty one with his name on it.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
There's some
Didn't
subtlety.
see that.
Yeah, and then he opens the shower curtain to see limbs hanging in
Yeah.
plastic wrap.
Disembodied, just dismembered bodies
Decaying corpse
in the tub.
Pretty gnarly scene in the bathroom there.
And she runs in full Patrick Bateman in her plastic raincoat and starts axing him.
Brief fight scene set to the New Year's Eve countdown ball drop on TV, and she ends up chopping him in the head, and that's the end of the movie.
Well, first she chops his foot off.
Yeah.
Which Katie loved.
That's a great moment. I'm sorry.
That was enjoyable.
Yeah, I found that.
It was a good practical effect.
It was.
It looked cool. The sock stretched out in a
that was
gnarly
gnarly.
way.
It was really, it was pretty gnarly. So that was cool. And then, she gets him right between the eyes with the axe.
I was surprised that was it, because I thought that what they were setting up to do, and this is how I would have made the movie, not my movie. So I'm not going to hold this against it, but I thought that like he was going to shoot her as she was coming down with the axe, and then they were going to die together.
I thought that too, honestly,
and maybe even kiss each other.
I like that.
I thought that too, Chris. I was hoping like they would just do each other in.
Yeah.
You know,
'Cause we're
just
not
off
really
each other.
rooting for her at that point. I mean,
I was kind of rooting
6 of
for
one,
her.
half a dozen of the other.
But no, this was probably my personal favorite. I just thought it was very entertaining.
And I also really liked the acting in this one.
Yeah.
I thought the performances from both of the lead characters were very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were good. The weird touch at the end of this to me was she said something that I didn't understand at all at first, and then one of you two said it was in Spanish.
Yeah, I think it was something in Spanish, but I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know what that was.
understand the significance of that.
I don't know what she said.
And then also the way it ended with her just like dancing to Auld Lang Syne with her axe in her living room.
I loved it. What a delight.
Yeah.
So I like that this film kind of touches on underappreciated element of New Year's Eve, which is that it's fucking lonely sometimes. I don't know what your experience is. Like I said, my birthday's on New Year's Eve, and something I always encounter is like, everyone's like, oh, you must love having a birthday on New Year's Eve. I'm like, no, I don't, because yeah, everyone has the day off or whatever, but like, no one gives a shit that it's your birthday on New Year's Eve. The bartender is not going to hook you up on New Year's Eve, and all your friends have made other plans a month and a half ago. And, you know, I've been there. A lot of people have been there where it's like, okay, I guess I'll just sit here with maybe someone else if I'm lucky and watch TV. And hey, look at all those people having a good time.
Chris, hot idea for you this year: murder someone instead.
I might murder someone again this year.
Or not.
Yeah.
Again?
Oh, that's right. That worked out pretty well last year.
I don't know. Like everyone, talks about Valentine's Day being lonely.
Yeah.
For single people. I would say New Year's Eve is more lonely for single people.
Yeah, I think last year was
I can speak to that. And yes.
Well, yeah, last year was like the first year I ever spent like New Year's Eve with like any kind of partner, and like every other year was just like I'm with my friends and those friends are kissing and those friends are all kissing, and I'm just gonna go find the cat and
maybe I could get a pity kiss.
Yeah.
I remember one year Chris provided me breath mints in case I got a kiss after I left his house on New Year's Eve. So I was going to a separate party. Yeah, that was many moons ago.
Many moons ago.
Solid bro.
Thank you. You're a solid bro too, Patrick.
Aw.
At least on Valentine's Day, you have like the Valentine's Day backlash movement to have solidarity with.
Ugh.
Nothing on New Year's Eve though.
No.
Nothing but you and your mind and Ryan Seacrest and Anderson Cooper and
that is
Kathy
the definition
Griffin.
of hell.
Kathy Griffin.
Not Kathy Griffin anymore.
Oh, right.
But that was you ever watched that? Kathy Griffin and Anderson Cooper?
Speaking of severed heads.
I don't think I did. I'm not much into New Year's. Okay. Like New Year's Eve makes me anxious and sad, to be honest, because I think like as the ball's dropping, I start thinking about like, oh, what were my goals for the year and which ones didn't I achieve? And now time is up.
This
and
was
just
supposed
be
to
like
my
me.
year.
Right. Yeah.
Just be like me and don't set goals.
So New Year's Eve, I'm generally like, I go to bed early, or sometimes I'll be performing on that night or go to see other friends performing, like doing improv shows and stuff like that. Because then at least you're like with other people and there's a celebratory spirit. So
I guess I'm the minority majority here in that I've mostly had good New Year's Eves and I like New Year's Eve. So sorry, guys.
This is putting me down a whole spiral of like all the real horror behind all these holidays.
Oof, we've gone too deep.
And then also with the New Year's, that whole worry about online dating and like, is the person online who you really think they are, and could you end up on a Tinder date with a serial killer? And it's like, okay, so I'm just gonna stay home by myself for a while now, and just
You know what I like to do on New Year's Eve?
What?
Drink a cup of Auld Lang Syne.
Oh, I love drinking.
All right. Any other thoughts on the New Year's Eve segment or on this whole movie in general? We've come a long way. We've made a great journey through all these vignettes here.
I feel like I've aged a year just talking about it.
I feel like we spent more time talking about the vignettes than most of them were, like how it was long. They were shorter than the time we spent talking about them.
It's quite possible.
I think we are mined out. I think we've mined it out.
We've mined it out.
We've mined it all. We've trawled the seas of Holidays, the movie, and we've come up with the only tuna that we're going to get.
Well, in that case, we have some of the standard business to take care of. Steven's not here today, but I think Steven has told us what movie we're watching next, hasn't he?
Steven was very adamant about not missing his part in the democratic process.
He's a diligent EHMONer.
And he told us what movie we're watching next, but I hear, Patrick, that you can't make the next episode.
Sadly, no.
But
I'm going to watch this movie on my own time, and then I'm going to weigh in very briefly at the beginning of the episode after.
Oh, okay. Great, because if you don't watch them all, you can't say you've watched every horror movie on Netflix.
Which I don't think Steven ever watched Cabin
We're not
Fever
going to worry
2.
about... Yeah, you're right. No, we are watching a film next episode called Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
And Steven submitted this to us, remotely, right?
Yep.
He sent it to us by passenger pigeon.
A letter. Yep, letter in the
Telegram?
mail. Can you believe it was in the mail? Yep. It said, Dear Chris. It was like, I could hear his voice in my head as I read it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I won't read it here for reasons, but... yeah, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. I guess it's a remake of a movie from the 70s that I guess Steve has some interest in. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
Cool. Well, in the meantime, we want to encourage everybody, as usual, go give us a 5-star review, not a 4-star review or a 3-star review or any of this other lower level piddly bullshit. 5 stars, we deserve it. Rate us on iTunes or wherever else you get your podcasts. Go follow us on the socials, follow, share, subscribe, whatever that stuff is that you do, and go buy some merch. We talked before about the shirts. Go get some shirts.
You can get the same design that's on the shirts on all kinds of shit.
That's true. It doesn't have to be a shirt.
A mug, a
Yeah.
sticker. You can put it on your computer at work. People
Right.
say, "What's that? That's disgusting. Get off of this. This is company equipment."
Yeah. So you may be one of those people who's like, oh, I don't wear shirts. I don't like clothes.
Yeah.
You still don't have an excuse. Go get a fucking mug or a sticker or whatever. It's at everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com under the merch link.
There's a link there. It says merch. Click on it. It'll take you to the store on TeePublic.
Yes.
Which is where it all lives.
And where we get a handsome commission on every shirt that's
Pittance,
sold.
but yes, it helps. It helps for sure.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thanks to our special guests, Allyson with a Y and
Thank
Katie.
you.
It took us 65 episodes, but we've achieved gender equity for one episode.
Never again.
Never again.
All right, for every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Patrick.
I'm Chris.
I'm Allyson.
And I'm Katie.
See you next time.